Another was when I would sit at my dad's knee, literally sit by his knees every night and watch him watch the news. It's how I learned to be a conservative, because I would watch my dad yell at Walter Cronkite and then explain to me why. And the next morning I would wake up and he would yell at the New York Times. I would say, Daddy, why do you read this and watch this if it upsets you so much? And then he'd explain to me how important his principles were. Both of my parents thought that integrity is everything, character counts. They taught me that values are what guide your behavior when no one's looking and you don't think anyone will ever find out. As I went on in life, I came to know that everyone truly has God-given gifts. Everyone has enormous potential. But as I have lived and traveled and worked around the world, I have also learned that there are things that have been possible for more people here than anywhere else on earth. And so I got to thinking about why that is. In fact, huge possibilities have happened in my own life. I started as a secretary in a 9-person real estate firm. And I must tell you, when my mother said to me that morning, what you are is God's gift to you, what you make of yourself is your gift to God, I didn't feel particularly gifted as a young girl or as a young woman. I went to work typing and filing in that little 9-person real estate firm. And ultimately I would go on to become the chief executive officer of what we turned into the largest technology company in the world, Hewlett-Packard. And now I'm running for the President of the United States. Let me assure you that is possible only in this nation. And it's possible here and only here, because our founders built a nation on really a radical ideas. It's what our founders meant when they said you have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And the really radical part of that idea was not simply that they thought everyone had a right to fulfill their potential, but they said that right came from God and could not be taken away, should not be taken away by man or government. I'm running for the presidency of the United States, ladies and gentlemen, because I think we have come to a pivotal point in our nation's history where the truth is the potential of too many Americans, indeed the potential of this great nation, is being crushed by the weight, the power, the cost, the complexity, the ineptitude, and the corruption of the federal government and the political class. That might sound like a very strong statement, but I think we have loads of evidence to prove that what I just said is true. Here we are in a VFW. How long are we going to accept that those who have served us, our veterans, will not be served by the Veterans Administration? How long are we prepared to accept that? The Veterans Administration has been a stain on our nation's honor for 20 years. Politicians come and go. They talk about it at election time, but fundamentally nothing has ever changed. And in fact, it's gotten worse and worse. Do you remember the scandal of the wait times in Arizona? 18 months ago, veterans were dying, waiting for appointments. The scandal burst onto the front pages of the nation's newspapers, and American citizens were outraged. They were so outraged that they put a lot of pressure on politicians. And politicians actually do respond to pressure. And so what did the politicians do? In 3 short weeks, they passed a bipartisan bill, no arguing, no posturing, they just passed it. And that bill said that 400 senior executives could be fired at the VA if they didn't do their jobs. It was a breakthrough, because the government has always run on the seniority system, and it doesn't really matter what you do in the government, you can't be fired. And yet that bill passed and President Obama signed it. Example of what happens when the American citizenry puts pressure on the political process. But then what happened? Politicians moved on. Just last month, I read a report that said that over 250,000 veterans have died waiting for appointments. And did you hear anything out of the politicians, many of whom are running for office? Did you hear anything out of Washington? No. The ineptitude just goes on. Benign. Veterans are dying because the Veterans Administration has never been reformed. Once again, in this election cycle, we're talking about immigration. How long have we been talking about immigration? We talked about it in 2008, we talked about it in 2012, we're talking about it again in 2015, and how long has the border been insecure? 25 years. That's how long we've been talking about it. Nothing's happened. How long has the legal immigration system been broken? 25 years. You see, folks, politicians talk. They talk. And occasionally, when they're under a lot of pressure, they pass a bill. But meanwhile, for the last 50 years, government has gotten bigger and bigger, more powerful, more complex. And when bureaucracies get big and powerful and complex, when there is no consequence for non-performance and there is no goal to measure whether people are performing on behalf of you who pay for it or not, what happens? All bureaucracies become inept and corrupt. And that weight is crushing. It's tangling people's lives up in webs of dependence. We don't encourage people to move forward in their lives. We discourage them from doing so. We're now destroying more small businesses than we're creating for the first time in U.S. history. That matters, because most Americans get their start the way I did, in a little company. 9-person firm. My husband, Frank, of 30 years, he started out driving a tow truck in a family-owned auto body shop. It is those little businesses, the sawmill, the real estate agency, the corner restaurant, whatever it is. They create 2/3 of the new jobs and employ half the people. So when we destroy the small, we're crushing opportunities for too many Americans. And meanwhile, what's going on? Crony capitalism is alive and well. Because you know what? When you have government that is big, powerful, costly, and complex, guess who are the only folks that can handle it? Big, powerful, wealthy, well-connected. And why is that true? I'll tell you, because as a CEO, I led a $90 billion firm. So if I didn't like what Washington was doing, at least I could hire armies of accountants and lawyers and lobbyists to figure out how to make the 73,000-page tax code work for us. But if you're a 9-person real estate firm, you can't do that. So the bigger government gets, the bigger and the more powerful the big and the powerful get, because they can handle it. They can work the system. Small, the powerless get crushed. So every time government goes into an industry, banking through Dodd-Frank, what's happened? 10 Wall Street firms have become 5. Thousands of community banks have gone out of business. What's happening with Obamacare? Health insurance companies are consolidating, hospitals are going out of network, and meanwhile we're not serving people. Insurance premiums are up, emergency room visits are up. The point is, we have to cut this government down to size. She addressed her nation at a pivotal point, and she said this: I am not content to manage the decline of a great nation. Well, neither am I. I am prepared to lead the resurgence of a great nation. And what leading the resurgence of a great nation requires now is a president who actually understands how the economy works and what the engine of economic growth really is. She must understand the world and how the world works. I know more world leaders on the stage today than anyone running, except perhaps Hillary Clinton, but she did photo ops. I had, a meeting with Vladimir Putin, this close, all right? So anybody who's actually met him, he's not as friendly as you. Anyone who's actually met him would know that a gimmicky red reset button wouldn't work. I know our Arab allies, I know Bibi Netanyahu. The point is, I know that if we do not stand with our allies and confront our adversaries, that the world is a very dangerous and tragic place. I know that if we don't have the strongest military on the face of the planet, and everyone has to know it, by the way, that the world becomes a dangerous and tragic place. Our president needs to understand bureaucracies and how they work. Because unless you understand how a bureaucracy works, you do not understand how to cut it down to size and hold it accountable. And I hope you'll ask me about specific things that we need to do to cut it down to size and hold it accountable, because there are 3 or 4 very basic things. She needs to understand technology, because technology is a great tool now that can be used to re-engage citizens in the process of their government, but it's also a weapon, honestly, that's being used against us by our enemies. And so, Mrs. Clinton, actually I do understand that you can't prevent a server from being hacked by guarding it with Secret Service agents. And no, you don't wipe a server clean with a cloth. And finally, I think we need someone in the White House who understands leadership, who actually understands that you have to challenge the status quo to lead, and that the highest calling of a leader is to unlock potential in others. And now we need to unlock the potential of this great nation. So, I will just close with 2 thoughts from some interviews I've had recently, because I've gained something of a reputation for being able to, take any question and talk to anyone. Some of you commented on my sort of knockdown, drag-out fight with Chris Matthews right after the debate. It's okay. I was asked an interesting question on The View. I went on The View recently, and in the midst of the conversation, which actually was going quite well, they kind of liked me and I kind of liked them, I got asked with that tone, why are you a conservative? You know, the tone I mean, I like you, I agree with you, how can you possibly be a conservative? And I answered in this way. I said, I'm a conservative because I know no one of us is any better than any other one of us. Each of us are gifted by God. All of us have the potential to live lives of dignity and purpose and meaning. I don't believe progressives believe that, by the way. Progressives believe some are better than others. Some are smarter than others. Some really can't live lives of dignity and purpose. Don't worry, we'll take care of you. It is the height of disrespect and disregard. And I think it is a fight we're going to have and win to win in 2016. But on a lighter note, I will end with another crazy question I was asked. This was on a national television program, and it happened right here in New Hampshire. I was on a show on a Saturday morning, and I was asked, did I believe that a woman's hormones prevent her from serving in the Oval Office? My answer was this. Can you think of a single instance in which a man's judgment might have been clouded by his hormones? I think one of the things people figured out after the last debate is there's another woman running for president. Her name is Carly Fiorina. I'm not running because I'm a woman. I've never been a token in my life. But I am a woman. And whether or not you're prepared to support me today, and I hope very much I will earn your support today, but I also recognize you New Hampshireites are tough. You know, you like to see people a lot of times before you commit. So I hope I earn your support today. But even if I don't, in your heart of hearts, you know you can't wait to see me debate Hillary Clinton.
Opportunity and potential. As a New Hampshire voter, I believe that regardless of where you're born, you should have the opportunity to grow to your full potential. When we create partnerships and invest in kids, we build the foundations for independent people and independent nations. If elected, will you launch a presidential initiative on early childhood development, focusing on nutrition and early education, so these kids can not just survive, but thrive with bright futures for themselves and their countries?
Well, first let me commend you for the work that you obviously do, because there's no question that every child has many gifts, great potential, and we must invest in every child. We cannot succeed as a country in the 21st century, where honestly in the 21st century, brain power, human potential is the only limitless resource we have. Because we don't have as many people as other nations, we got to make sure we leave not a single American behind. And so it must be true that whatever your circumstances, wherever you're born, you have the opportunity, the tools, the education, the investment, someone to take a chance on you so that you can fulfill your potential. I also believe, honestly, that we have loads of data that says when the federal government gets involved, it's not always a good thing. So as an example, the Department of Education has gotten bigger and more funding every year for 40 years, and the quality of education has gotten poorer. life choices so that they can go to the kinds of early education they need. But if that particular school district or teachers union or community is failing them, they can pick up and go somewhere else. There's some innovative ideas about how to do this. In a state like Nevada, for example, there's something called an education savings account, where literally federal dollars follow a child around, so that a parent has an opportunity to say, you know what, this school district is failing my child, I want to go somewhere else. Maybe I want to go to parochial school. Maybe I want to homeschool my kids. Maybe I want to go to a charter school nearby or a magnet school nearby. You have to give parents choices.